All right, we got one here. Pulled it off from my friend Lexi. The Timberwolves have officially joined the second tier of teams in the Western Conference with their win over OKC. Josh, howl or foul?
I think that's a howl. Yeah. Tom?
It's a howl for me. There it is. All right. Why do you think it's a howl, Josh? Why are we good? Why are we up there in that tier? Obviously, the OKC win, people are riding high. We had a loss right before that, but how are we feeling about that? I got a few stats I'll run through too here to sort of back up my claim for that, but what do you got?
When you look at the standings, the Wolves are currently sixth in the West. I will note, I feel like the top of the West is much, much stronger than the top of the East. If you look at the teams with the 8 most wins in the NBA, 6 of them are in the West, only 2 are in the East. If you look at the last 10 games, the Wolves are 8-2. Nobody in the West has a stronger last 10 games than that. We're tied with San Antonio and OKC. I think there's weaknesses on all these teams. I think there's strengths on all these teams. I think the Wolves have a really high ceiling. I do think we're pretty variable. I think we've got a pretty low floor as we've seen. One of the things to really note is Ant has missed 7 games this year. This is the second most games he's ever missed in a season. His second year in the league, he missed a bunch of games with health and safety protocols, which was when we had COVID, and then he had a sprained ankle. So for him to miss 7 of our first 28, I think is something we have to factor in.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. I just think all these teams, they have weaknesses, they have strengths. I think it's also been funky. Our 2 games against the Nuggets was the second night of a back-to-back for us. One of the games Ant didn't play. We beat the Spurs. They didn't have Wemby. When we played the Lakers, they didn't have LeBron. The second time we played them, they didn't have Luka. We didn't have Ant. That was that kind of last-second Austin Reeves shot. We haven't even played the Rockets yet. So I'm really curious to see. We've got kind of a nice stretch here. Again, we just started with OKC, but we've got the Nuggets, we've got the Knicks, we've got some other teams coming up. So I think it'll be really interesting to see. But I do feel like, yes, OKC is number 1 with a bullet. That second group, we've got to see some more games, but I feel like our ceiling says that we're in there. What do you think, Tom?
Who's in the second group for you? Because I have a team that I do not feel is in the second group in that second tier. So who's your second tier? I assume it's Spurs, Rockets, Wolves, Nuggets, and then I'm not putting LA in there. So I'm going to talk about LA. I don't want to.
Tell me more about LA then. Why is LA not in the second tier?
No shade today, but I do want to say LA's rankings. Okay, so basically 6th on offense, 21st on defense. I want to go a little deeper. Basically, their most used lineup, Luka, Austin Reeves, Marcus Smart, Hachimura, and Ayton is plus 12.5. It's actually really solid defensive rating at 102.9, so that's pretty good. You can't just have one lineup of people who can defend and play. Their defense is so bad. Their second most used lineup's defensive rating drops to allowing 121.6 per 100 possessions. Then their next lineups behind that, 136.2 and 130.8 points per 100. You cannot defend like that and be taken seriously in the NBA right now. So that's just what I wanted to mention for them. I don't think that they're in there. You just can't be that bad on defense. LeBron's not a great defender. Luka's not. Austin's not. But again, only one lineup where they can actually defend. And so even if you're scoring points, I mean, you're going to get just destroyed. You're going to get destroyed. You can't hang.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, your point about the Lakers, they're strong offense, weak defense. I mean, the Nuggets encapsulate that. As of Friday, the Nuggets have the number 1 offensive rating. They're the most efficient offense, but they're 26th on defense. So interesting to see, how do these things play out? I will say the Nuggets don't have Aaron Gordon. He's a great defensive player. I do feel like the Wolves are more balanced. They're one of the few teams that are actually top 10 in offense and defensive net rating. The Rockets are one of those teams. The Thunder are one of those teams. So it's interesting. You're thinking about those floors. I think more about the ceiling. So it's interesting to think about the inverse of that.
Yeah, and when you sent me a graphic too, Denver was on there, and so I was like, crap, I wonder if Josh is going to call me out for having Denver in the top with such a bad defense and not LA. So I did look. Denver's second and third most used lineups were 119.5 and 123.3. So that's 2 points and 13 points better than LA's second and third units. So those aren't great numbers. Don't get me wrong, but better. Just not as god awful in terms of numbers. They're not good, but they're not nearly as bad with those second and third lineups. So give them a little bit
to see too. We've got these upcoming tough games. What happens? Where do these numbers go?
Jokic is just really good too, and so it's just like a Jokic team that's that good on offense, and has had some struggles on defense with players out. feels like they're still really good and still should be in that tier. So I don't have LA in that tier. I don't know if you have LA drop down into that like Suns Warriors tier. I'm assuming you've got Wemby, Spurs, and the Rockets all up there with the T-Wolves too.
Oh yeah, I think OKC number one. Then I think right now there's kind of this larger group: Spurs, Nuggets, Rockets, Wolves, and Lakers. I would put the Lakers in the second tier because I just feel like they're so much better than the Warriors, the Grizzlies, the Suns. But we'll see. I think the next few weeks there's going to be a lot of good matchups, and our perspective on this might shift. Or maybe we're like, hey, there's actually a tier within the second tier. Like we're breaking it up into two groups because that's what the numbers tell us.
Yeah, time will shake that out. If you have to put LA in the second tier because they have so much firepower on offense, then I'm putting them at the very bottom if I'm forced to put them in the second tier. The Rockets are just really good. The Rockets are really good on offense and defense. The Rockets, though, I'm curious to see. They still don't have a point guard, so I was looking at like, okay, what are the things that we can nitpick? They still don't have a point guard, so they have a higher turnover rate, but they are like offensive rebounding at like 40%.
They're
It's
huge.
astronomical. They were highest in the league 2 years ago at 31%, and they were at 38 last year. But what I'm curious to see is when teams really lock down against them in a playoff atmosphere. Last year they had a 38% offensive rebounding ranking, and then in the playoffs it dropped to like 31 and a half. So I'm curious to see if that defensive effort of other teams and really that intensity, if that's part of the reason that if that number drops down again, and then you aren't getting as many second chance opportunities and your offense is struggling. Because when you have 4 out of every 10 shots, you get a second shot attempt, you're going to score more points and you're going to have a good offense. So I'd be curious to see what happens there too. But really fun in the West. I want to get this game against the Nuggets. And I think once we play a few better teams, the Knicks again, we have a run of good teams. And so I'll be interested to see how we stack up. And if the team just gets up for those games and plays well and stacks some wins, that'd be really cool. But they're all really good teams, so we could lose too. The trade machine will be firing up again, just like it was after the Grizzlies. I think we probably Minnesota fans probably broke the trade machine after that Grizzlies game, going to try to figure out who we could get, and then it's cooled off since the OKC game. But yeah, that's all I got for that one. I'm not putting LA in the second tier. I don't think they're very good, and could just be my bias and not liking LA. But it's my tier, and they're not in it.